We're going to talk about excellence with zeal next.
The program you are about to watch is part of a free series we are making available to you as a gift from Greg Fritz Ministries, entitled Answering the Call. Visit gregfritz.org to download the MP3s and watch the streaming video for free by entering code FREE at checkout. Are you tired of hearing bad news? Tune into the good news of the gospel. Welcome to Good News with Greg Fritz.
Hello, I'm Greg Fritz. Welcome to the Good News program. We are coming to the end of our series, Answering the Call. We've covered a lot of ground, and I would love for you to get all of these teachings. You can go to our free download section of the website and you can download the entire series, or you can watch it in video on demand or streaming video on your device. You could literally take your cell phone and go to the website, download that link, and watch or listen to those videos. You don't have to watch a video. You can just listen to it. I've done it many times at the gym. You can just take it wherever you go and listen to these messages, because we've covered so many different areas of help. And we've done this, our ministry, we've tried to cover everyone and include everyone. The last couple of sessions have really been devoted more to those that are on the path to full-time ministry. But other than that, the entire series really was designed for everyone and to help us understand one another. We talked about apostles and prophets and pastors and teachers. We've really kind of given you both sides of the equation, whether you're a lay person or a ministry person. So I would invite you to get those messages. I have something else coming up. I've got this mini book. You can go look for this on our website. I wrote this. It's called Prepare to Meet Your Maker, and I'm so excited about this. It is designed for non-believers. If you know someone who's not a Christian and they want a reason to believe, this book will help them. I'm going to do a whole week on this in the future and teach on this subject. I believe this is going to help a lot of people. But the premise here is people prepare their whole life for retirement or for vacations or for their funeral. They buy insurance in case they have a disaster at home or a wreck in their car. And some people do all of those things and none of that happens. They don't even get to enjoy their retirement, or they never have a wreck and never get to turn in a claim on their insurance, but they take precaution anyway and do absolutely nothing about eternity. I mean, they don't take 5 minutes to prepare for life after death. And so we present that and talk to them about what it means and what if there is a God? Are you ready to meet Him? And I give you 4 principles, 4 truths to prepare anyone to meet God. So we'll be talking about that later. I'm very excited about it. And if you're interested in that mini book, go to my website in the book section and you can get your copy. I want to talk today about excellence with zeal. And it's important that if we're going to do something for God, we do it with a good attitude. And that probably goes without saying, but I'll tell you something. There are a lot of people that are bitter and hurt in the church. They've had an experience and it's hurt them or wounded them, or they've been disappointed. Maybe they feel like they've been used or taken advantage of, and they've got a bad attitude. And I just want to tell you, we've got to get over that. And I've said this before, but if you haven't, if you haven't been lied about and mischaracterized and underappreciated and slandered, you haven't been in the church long. Things will happen that are not going to go our way. The church is not heaven, and there are people in the church and in the body of Christ that are human, and we make mistakes. And so no matter what's happened in the past, we've got to realize that Jesus didn't do it. Jesus is not responsible. He didn't cause it, but He's there to help us and restore us. I mean, look at everything people have done to Him. I mean, if anybody has a right to be bitter, it's Jesus. He was totally mistreated, and yet He's the most loving, forgiving God that you could imagine. So we need to follow in His footsteps in that sense. and serve God with zeal. Don't let experiences or some person rob you of your zeal. We can be on fire for God. It's a choice that we can make, and we shouldn't let anybody make that for us. Let me give you an example here of the Apostle Paul. He's giving his testimony in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23. He said, "Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I'm more." He's just going to list some of the things he's been through to prove he's a minister. He's trying to beat them at their own game. In other words, there were people bragging that they're ministers and putting labels on themselves. And Paul said, "You think you're a minister? Well, I'm a minister." And he begins to give us a list of really what should be accomplishments, but it's not. I mean, this list is very, very different than what you'd expect. He said, "In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequently, in deaths often. From the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. Now Paul's not whining and saying, "Poor old me. They beat me and I didn't. What did I do to deserve this? Why does nobody appreciate what I'm trying to do?" He was not whining. He was bragging. And he wasn't bragging in the way you would think. You'd think he'd say, "I have this many partners, I've won this many souls, I've started this many churches, my ministry has reached this many miles." He didn't say that. He said, "I've been beaten, I've been put in prison, I've been lied about, I've been laughed at, I've been spit on," and he was bragging. Man, we need to get with the program. If you've been done wrong in the church, if you've been done wrong in the name of the Lord, blessed are you. You are joining an elite group of people that include Jesus himself at the head, of people who have been mischaracterized and misused and done wrong for the gospel or because of their relationship with God. And it's not something to be hurt and bitter over, no matter how much it hurt. And I'm not preaching down to anybody. I've been through things and I understand what it's like, but you have to get over it. One of the ways to get over it is to pray earnestly, honestly pray for those that have done you wrong. And as you pray for them, it seems to purify and cure you of any ill will toward them. But I'm going to go on here. It says, from the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. He was beaten 5 times with 39 stripes. That is massive. He had scars on him. And I say we, and we're living in the modern world, and we don't get beaten with rods now in the modern world. But we have somebody say something mean to us, and it takes us a month to get over it. Or we have somebody do us wrong, and they don't even touch us, and it takes us, sometimes people never get over it. It's time to say, you know what, I am not going to be held hostage by my past experiences. I'm going to let that go and get on with my life. If Paul could be beaten from the Jews, these are his own people. They beat him with rods. Then he says 3 times, I don't know what he was beaten with the stripes, but 3 times he was beaten with rods, and once he was stoned. Man, if you got stoned, you'd be ready to retire. Like, I've been doing this long enough. Somebody else can do it now. I've had enough. But he didn't. He continued his ministry. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Can you imagine the trauma of having a ship sink that you're on? We've not even seen that. You see these cruise ships get stuck in a hurricane and people want their money back. Paul had 3 ships wreck. How traumatic is that? And yet he's saying, he's bragging on the fact that he's gone through all this. And then he says, once I was stoned, 3 times I was shipwrecked, a day and a night I've been in the deep. So he floated around waiting to be eaten by sharks or rescued for a day and a night. In journeyings often, in perils of water, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils in the city, perils in the wilderness, perils in the sea. Oh man. In weariness and toil, in sleeplessness, often in hunger and thirst, in fastings, in cold and nakedness, besides the other things, what comes upon me daily, my deep concern for all the churches. So the point here is that we do go through things. Don't let anything rob you of your zeal. Paul was more focused, more energetic, more zealous over life and ministry because of these things than he was, then they affected him in a negative way. He used it as something to motivate him. And we should do the same thing. I've been in ministers' meetings and times when they say, tell us some horror stories. Tell us what's gone bad for you in the ministry. And I really can't think of anything off the hand. I'd have to stop and really go back and think to find something to complain about. Not that nothing's happened. I just don't focus on that. I'm not going to allow that to define me. I want to be who God's called me to be and do what He's called me to do. I don't want to be the sum total of all my bad experiences and try to warn those that are coming after me, oh, it's going to be tough. Ministry's so bad. You're going to be so hurt. You're going to be... that doesn't help anybody. There's no point in... That's not scriptural. Jesus went through more than any of us, and He's not complaining. Paul went through more than any of us, and he was bragging about it. He wasn't feeling sorry for himself in the least. We've got to focus on the opportunity at hand to serve God with our life, to do something eternal, to do something significant, to do something that matters. And you say, well, what would that be? Whatever you can do, in whatever way you can serve the Lord, even if it's the most natural or mundane thing. Jesus said, anybody who gives someone a cup of cold water in my name will not lose his reward. That means that anything you do for God can be translated into eternal rewards and eternal riches. That's a tremendous opportunity. Zeal is something we bring with us. Don't expect your employer, your church, don't put that demand on them to keep you built up and to keep you zealous, but stir that up in yourself. When David and his men were robbed and when they were out at battle in Ziklag, the enemy came and took their families and their possessions away, and it was a bad day. And the Bible says David encouraged himself in the Lord. And we need to learn how to do that. And I know it's easier said than done, but what is the alternative? I'm not trying to be hard on people, but what's the alternative? To be depressed and not get over it? To be sad until some outsider can come and cheer us up? I don't want to put my future into the hands of somebody else that may not show up at the right time. We can learn how to encourage ourselves in the Lord, and that'll make all the difference. Not only will it encourage us, but it'll encourage everybody around us. You don't want to be that person that has the dark cloud over their head that just sucks all the life out of the room when you come in. You don't want to be that person. Be the person that brings in a good word, a positive attitude, some zeal, that really helps in any situation. Be the person that people want to be with when the pressure's on. When you don't know what to do, you can always count on you. They can count on you to have a good word, a good attitude, to have a positive outlook on a negative situation. This is scriptural, and I'm going to give you scriptures now. Romans 12, verse 11 says, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. In Ephesians 6, verse 6, not with eye service. He's talking here about serving the Lord. How do you do that? Well, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he's a slave or free. So God's saying in whatever situation you're in, and this is what happens to people. They get in a situation that's not ideal. Maybe it's not their dream job. Maybe they're stuck here for a time to get through a season of their life. And rather than turn it around and say, I'm going to do this I'm going to give it my best, and I'm going to do it as unto the Lord, they do the opposite. And they say, you know what, why try? I don't want to be here. I don't belong here. This isn't my ultimate goal. And one of these days when I get my promotion, then I'm going to get serious and I'm going to really go to work. But right now, what's the use? Nobody cares, nobody knows, but it does matter. And somebody does care, and somebody does know. And God, your promoter, God, your manager, God, your helper can get you through that. But we've got to give him something to work with. You know, we see missionaries go to the front lines by faith, and we see Jesus walk on the water by faith. He tells us to move mountains by faith. It takes faith to be in an undesirable situation, a job that's not really what you want your career to be, but something that you have to do right now in order to make it, and something, an experience that you're going through that you didn't choose. It takes faith to say, I'm going to make the best of this. I'm going to be the best, whatever it is I am, that I can be, and I'm going to do it as unto the Lord. And my boss may not care. It may not make me any more money per hour. I may not get any kind of appreciation or recognition for what I do, but I'm going to do this as unto the Lord. And I'll tell you what, if you'll have that attitude, nobody can keep you down. These are principles that set you up for promotion. And when God promotes you, He doesn't have to have your boss's permission. He doesn't have to have anybody else's help. God can promote you. And so the best thing you can do is stop working for your boss right now. Don't quit your job. Just stop working for your boss and start doing it as unto the Lord. And it says, you know, God who is in private or in secret will see you and reward you openly. That is such a powerful principle. God is going to be on your side. And so we just need to, you know, remind yourself when you're in a difficult situation and you're not being treated right and things aren't going your way and you think you should be at a higher level than you are. Remember what happened to Paul. Think about his experiences being thrown in prison and beaten and stoned and shipwrecked and robbers and in the wilderness and in the city. I mean, he had trouble everywhere he went, but he kept his attitude right. And if Paul can do it in those situations, we certainly can do it in our situation. And really, you know, I can't overemphasize this. This makes the difference between those who really succeed and those that just never seem to get going in their life. You can be in any situation and God can promote you from there. You know, I was when I left, God finally told me where to go after I came home from Africa. He led me to go to a small town, a small church, and be a youth pastor. And I didn't get a salary. I had to get a job to pay my bills. And he specifically, he told me to live in a government housing project. And I didn't want to live there. I didn't qualify to live there at first. I had a house picked out, a little house that I could afford, I thought, and I was going to live there. And it was just not right. The Lord led me to this project. And they didn't allow, you know, you had to have some kind of disability or something in order to get in there. But because I asked, they got a waiver to allow me to move in, and so I did. And I tell you, I didn't like the fact that I'm living here in a low-income housing project, and you know, it's subpar. Everything is cheap, and everything is poor. Even the parking spaces were too narrow, and I thought, why can't they just make a regular size park? Are we not even human enough to have does it cost more money to make an actual regular size parking space? But everything was cut. They cut corners on everything. And you know what? I decided if I'm going to live here, I'm going to be the best tenant in this project. I'm going to keep my place clean. I'm going to keep my clothes clean. I'm going to make my place smell good. I'm going to do my best to, because this, And this was my attitude. This is not the end for me. This is just the beginning. I can get anywhere in the world from here. This is like a launching pad. I am not stuck here. I'm here right now, and I'm going to make the best of it. And you know, it's amazing how God joined with me and encouraged me during that season. I did my laundry at the apartment laundromat. I was so happy. I kept my clothes clean. I vacuumed my floor. I kept my kitchen clean, my dishes clean. In fact, it was so noticeable, and I didn't realize anybody knew it. I didn't know anybody cared. And the apartment manager told me one day, he said, you know, you have the best apartment, the nicest apartment in this complex. And he said, anytime we have guests that come and want to see our facilities, we take them to your apartment. And I didn't realize that. And it wouldn't have mattered if he'd realized that. But I'm going to tell you who did. God knows what you're doing. And it means something to him. And I didn't have to stay there forever, but I was there 3 years, and it seems like forever when you're somewhere you really don't want to be for 3 years. But it was a season that I truly made the most of, and the Lord honored me for that. He rewarded me for that. My car was old and the paint was oxidizing, and it had 100,000+ miles on it. And I took care of that car. I kept it clean. I kept it maintained. I took it in and I waxed it and washed it. And I did it because this isn't the last car I'm going to have. I'm going to take care of what I have to take care of. I'm going to make the most of what I have and trust the Lord to increase me and to promote me. And I can tell you he did. And you never regret those times. I don't look back and say, boy, it was so tough. I went through that and I lived poor and I didn't have anything. When I talk about those times in my life, I do it like Paul. I'm proud of it. I'm happy that I went through that. In fact, don't take this wrong, but now that I'm doing some of the things God's called me to do, and I'm fulfilling some of the things, the dreams that he gave me, I realize in a lot of ways I was happier then than I am now. I had a whole lot less problems. I mean, I didn't understand what was going on, but I was happy and my needs were met. I didn't have a lot of problems. I didn't have a lot of things to solve. It was a wonderful season of my life, and I'll never get to do that again. That's over. But man, it means the world that I was able to make the most of that because of the attitude. And the Lord helped me with it, because at first I was in shock, but he helped me gather myself and encourage myself and really face it in faith. And it just made all the difference until now. You know, I know that was one of the happiest, enjoyable seasons of my life. And I certainly didn't see that coming at the time. I thought, what in the world am I doing here, and how do I get out of here? But when it came time to move, it's like I was promoted. It's like I was launched out of there. And that makes so much difference. Let me give you some more scriptures. In Titus 2:14, it says, who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from every lawless deed and purify for himself his own special people, zealous for good works. After all Jesus did for us, he did all of that willingly and gladly so that we could be zealous for good works, not so that we could whine and complain and go through life sad and depressed. He saved you. He's redeemed you. He's filled you. He's changed you. He's given you heaven to look forward to so that you can be zealous for good works, not go through the motions like you feel sorry for yourself. We shouldn't ever feel sorry for ourselves, because then we're limiting what we can do in our lives. You say, well, you don't know what I've been through, and I don't. And my heart goes out to people, but what is the alternative? Is it just to live a life of sadness and sorrow and depression because of what's happened? Or can we change things in our own life and go forward and embrace joy and zeal and accomplish something for God? And I'd rather choose the latter. I'm not looking for an excuse to stay sad. In Titus 2:14 in the Amplified, it says, who gave himself on our behalf that he might redeem us, purchase our freedom from all iniquity, and purify for himself a people to be peculiarly his own, people who are eager and enthusiastic about living a life that is good and filled with beneficial deeds. Man, that says it all, doesn't it? Now, that's a mouthful. Let me read that again. Because of what Jesus did for us, now we're his own people who are eager and enthusiastic about living a life that is good and filled with beneficial deeds. Notice, it says he's not living a life waiting for somebody to do something for me, waiting for somebody to rescue me, waiting for somebody to help me. It's living a life that is filled with beneficial deeds. That's what you do. You don't have to wait for somebody for you to do a beneficial deed. We can choose to do that, and we're blessed when we do. 1 Corinthians 15:58 in the New Living Translation, so my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. Isn't that great? And you may look back and say, I've missed a lot of opportunities. Well, don't miss another one. Make the most of the ones you have right now and choose to live enthusiastically for the Lord, because it doesn't go unnoticed. One more, Colossians 3:23 and 24, whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you'll receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. Maybe they think you're employed somewhere working for somebody else, but you serve the Lord Christ, no matter what your job description is. Well, we've got one more message in this series. You don't want to miss that. We've run out of time today. We'll wrap this up on our next episode. Until then, remember this: the good news is so good, the bad news doesn't matter.
This series will help you decide and teach you the things every minister should know about getting started. Visit gregfritz.org to download the MP3s and watch the streaming video for free by entering code FREE at checkout.
We are in a growth mode right now. We are about to double our office space and include a studio that we can record, do live meetings from, and also do interviews. And I could use your help. Pray about supporting our ministry through partnership or a one-time gift. We are going to design this new set, and I don't know how much it's going to cost to do it, but I don't want to be limited by that. So if you'd like to come together with us and help us to push this project through, go to my website, to the PayPal, or to the donate button, or you can call our helpline, or you can text to give at 855-511-5991. We'd love to hear from you today. We need to find new ways to get the Word into our life. We ought to find ways to put it on our devices. We need to read it. We need to keep it before our eyes. We need to meditate on it. These things are the things that will change your life.
GregFritz.org offers many free resources on a variety of topics, such as how to let go of your past, live worry-free, hear God's voice clearly, and receive God's best in your life. Visit GregFritz.org to download free teachings that will change your life today.